it's wonderful to see you all here. I mean, gosh, we have almost 30 people here. That's great. Thank you. I see some of my students here. That's wonderful. Now, mind you, okay, there's going to be some rumors that have already been started that I'm giving extra credit for this, okay? Not me. Don't get this JFK mixed up with that JFK. And I know all 4 of these students, and believe me, they're good at what they do, and they will try to convince you, and they will say, go to Dr. Cross and ask him for extra credit. They will admit, I never gave them extra credit, so nobody gets extra credit.
It's worth a shot, though.
Let's try to negotiate. But no, thank you all for coming. It's wonderful to see you here. I'm so glad to have our 4 speakers today for our supply chain panel. Hopefully you'll take something away. We'll have some question and answer here in a little bit. But a wonderful group. I'll give you a little bit of background. You read probably a little bit in the on the bios of the folks that are here. Maybe I have a little more information for you all. Adam Quinn here was president of our ISM student chapter from 13 to 14, maybe? Or at least
sounds about right.
That sounds about right, okay. He attended ISM conference in the spring that we usually go to, and we were talking outside earlier, is that Adam and his group of folks, those officers actually raised all the money themselves to go to the conference in Dallas, and I was very appreciative of that because that was back in the day when I didn't have any money to sponsor any of that. He also went as a CSCMP intern to the conference, CSCMP conference in the fall, and it pays to be a leader in the organization because that's, well, Adam's also a good student, but that's why one of the reasons why he's picked. Left here in May of 14 and took a job down in Wilmington with a company that made rollers and equipment for conveyor belts, correct?
Yeah,
Conveyor
conveyor
systems.
belts, yeah.
There we go, right. And just lately he's taken a job now with GE Hitachi down in the same area, in the Wilmington area. And he'll tell us a little bit more about that when we get into it. Next to him is Tyler Pierce. Tyler graduated in 2016. Tyler was also president of our ISM student chapter. Tyler's from Virginia originally, and correct?
I was from North Carolina,
Oh.
but now Virginia.
I guess for the last many years, and works for Dollar General up there. Tyler was a CSCMP intern also, and although his background is in supply chain, he'll tell us more about this. Right now, he's in a more of a finance position, I believe, correct? And we'll talk about that a little bit, how you matriculate through and why it's important to get other skill sets. So good to have you, Tyler. Thank you for coming. Lily Rakes sitting next to Tyler's left there. Lily, you graduated in 2020, I believe? Yes, that sounds correct. Lily was also a CSCMP intern. That was fall of 19, and we went to Anaheim, I think, yes. And it was just before everything kind of fell apart, so that was a good conference because we actually got to do all the things that we did. Lily then went on to work for Advanced Auto Parts. Now, Advanced Auto Parts does have headquarters here in Raleigh, North Carolina, but you went and worked in Columbus, correct? Okay. And then, well, after the snow and the cold got to you after a while, right? Yes. Switched back, coming back towards this way, worked out of Charlotte area for West Marine for a number of years. She'll tell us a little bit more about that, what her jobs were and how she got there. So thank you so much for coming back. And then next to Lily is Cindy Farmer. She also was an ISM officer, a 2020 undergrad graduate, correct? And then stayed on or worked at the same time and got an MBA from here, correct? I think you're done with your MBA. Done. And she works for Kinexo up in Harbor, Rocky Mount? Rocky Mount, yes, just up the road in fulfillment. She's a fulfillment manager, and you've worked there, I think, the whole time since you graduated from undergrad, correct? Yes. So Sydney, thank you for coming. And we have a wealth of knowledge and also folks that have kind of stayed in the same job, but also have taken a job and then moved on to another job and have some experience for us to speak about. So what I like to usually do is start out with the panel. We've run this panel now for about 5 or 6 years. So I always like to start out and say, anyone can go. I don't want to go in order or line or whatever, but anyone can go. Just say, how did you get interested? When you came here to ECU, how did you get interested in supply chain management? And then, obviously, you all graduated with the supply chain management major. How did that happen? Tell us just a little bit about your story.
So I'll go first since I'm holding the microphone. But so I got interested in supply chain because there was some panels similar to this where over in BAPE there was people from different business majors. I decided I was going to come to ECU and I wanted to be in business. I said everything's a business. I can find a job anywhere if I get a business degree. And then they were doing some different panels, some different speakers coming in. One from supply chain, one from finance, one, different things. And so I said, you know what, supply chain seems interesting to me. I actually did the dual concentration in marketing and supply chain management. I said if I do that, I can sit on either side of the table. I can be in sales, or I can have salespeople come to me. At the end of the day, I guess I'm more of a homebody. I decided I'd rather salespeople come to me and take me out to dinner rather than me going and being a road warrior. I've got some friends that do that. I think they make great money. At the end of the day, they're gone a lot. I have a buddy who I think he said something like 200 days last year he was in hotel rooms. Just not what I wanted to do. So that's why I pursued this further and ended up where I am, and yeah, I'm glad I did.
There you go.
All right, so I had a slightly different path. My first job was through a co-op through high school, and I worked at Revlon. They had a manufacturing facility in my hometown. And I made Mitchell's deodorant that you buy at the store for 9 months my senior year of high school. I wanted to go to NC State, did not get in. Came here, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to chase money. So I was like, I'm going to go find the highest paying major I can find, which was chemical engineering. And I was like, I'm going to start chemistry here, and I'm going to transfer to state. Well, I fell in love here. I failed out of chemistry. Realized that was not for me. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to business. My family has brand businesses. I was like, I'm just going to go do that. Didn't quite know where I was going. And then I took my first supply chain class, and I was like, all the components of that first job that I had that I liked, we're talking about here. I knew I didn't want to run a production line, be boots on the ground for 40, 50 years, but I liked being in that business, in that industry. And once I took that first class, I was hooked, hired for life. Couldn't pay me to go to state after that first year once I got here. But that's kind of, ever since, that's kind of, I couldn't put my thumb on it until I took that first class, and that was all she wrote.
Excellent. Thank you, Doug.
Awesome. So I actually came in to ECU as a supply chain major. So that I had decided beforehand, before I came. But once I got here, my love for supply chain grew, and I knew for sure that's what I wanted to do and that's the industry that I wanted to go into. And the biggest thing that sold it for me was going through all of the supply chain classes themselves, but also going through and just at every class, there's just so many different aspects and so many different paths that you can go with supply chain, and it's not just one set route. There's just so many opportunities, and even if you don't like one piece of supply chain, there's so many more opportunities and doors that can be opened. So that's why I chose what I chose.
So for me, I heard of supply chain when I was about a senior in high school. It was just kind of a buzzword out there, and I wanted to go to state. So I was between state and ECU. Both had great business programs. But then as I was thinking about it, I was like, well, I like purple and gold a little bit better than red. So that's what got me here. And like you said, you couldn't pay me to go to state now. Hired for life. And when I got here, I started with a marketing major because at the time there was no dedicated supply chain program. So it was marketing with a concentration in supply chain management. And like Willie was saying, it's such a broad range of things to do within the supply chain. And for me, I knew that it could be something in pharma, it could be manufacturing, it could be restaurant side of things. So that's where I'm at now, is on the food service side. So getting to see how everything flows through the supply chain, not just in my world, but to look at everything now in that lens of, oh, well, that's part of this supply chain, and just seeing how everything works, I think is really unique.
Well, Cindy, on that note is, tell us a little bit, your title, what I was saying, is fulfillment manager. So tell us a little bit about what that means so we can get that language down and understand. And in the food service kind of industry or that sphere, tell us a little bit about that.
So at Kinexo, I'm the fulfillment manager, but we are a strategic supply chain solutions company. And I know that's a lot of buzzwords, but you guys can digest those buzzwords. We work with McLean. They actually own us. So if you keep going up the ladder, Warren Buffett is the head man in charge. But we deal with like Cisco, US Foods, PFG, different, those are what we call distribution centers, DCs. So we buy products from the vendors. So I'm going to use Tyson chicken because KFC is one of our biggest money makers at this point. All of the chicken nuggets nationwide and in Puerto Rico, all of them flow through us. So we buy this chicken through Tyson, Cook Foods, Marjack, and then we hold them in our warehouse and then send them out to McLean's, and they send them to the actual restaurants. So we do that for KFC, Taco Bell, Buffalo Wild Wings, and then some smaller ones like Clean Juice, Mimi's Bakery. Think smaller things, but that's how we make our money. So just buying in product at one price point, holding it, and then selling it at another. So that's how we make our money, and we make a lot. So
We
Yeah.
can do it at Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, to do our frozen food
gotcha,
sections.
gotcha.
Yep.
Good, no, thanks. Lily, how about yourself? Tell us a little bit about when you started at Advanced Auto Parts. I know we were talking yesterday, more in inbound, outbound logistics, and then same thing, a little bit more at West, but tell us a little bit about what those positions enabled, what your title was, and then tell us a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I was still in undergrad here at ECU. I got an internship with Advanced Auto Parts. And so after my internship with Advanced Auto Parts, I got hired on full-time after graduation. So I went to Columbus, Ohio, and I was up there for about 2 years, and my title was supervisor over supply chain. So I was a receiving manager. So I started out, my team was about a team of 10 to 15 people, give or take. So 10 to 15 people, I worked second shift. And then after a year at Advanced, I got promoted to first shift, and so that was a team of 50 people. And so what we did was everything that is in an Advanced Auto Parts store, we received it into our distribution center, so it went through us. So we worked very closely with the inventory department to make sure that everything was correct. Everything that was on the trucks we actually received, and then making sure that we received it and put it on the shelves correctly. And so with the receiving position, I was also over reclamation. And so reclamation is when stores would send back defects, and we would have to sort through that and then also take care of that. And then with that role, I touched pretty much all the roles in the distribution center. So I worked with receiving, which is inbound. I also worked with outbound, which is shipping. And I also worked with PDQ, which is parts delivered quickly, which is e-commerce. And it was really cool. The distribution center I was in Ohio actually had 80% of all of Advanced Auto Parts e-commerce sales. So everything came out of that distribution center. And we shipped to all the other distribution centers along with the stores. So total Advanced Auto Parts had 52 distribution centers, and we were one of them. So just to kind of put that on a scale. And then with West Marine, I didn't like the snow or the cold, so came back to North Carolina. I worked in Charlotte, and then I lived in Charlotte and worked in Rock Hill, South Carolina, so it was about a 20-minute drive, not far. And there I was an area manager for West Marine, so I was strictly outbound there. So I was over about a team of 20 people and then 185 stores. So a much larger position with West Marine. And currently I am getting my MBA, so I will be done in about 5 weeks.
Go ahead, Tyler. You started, I mean, you've been at Dollar General the whole time, right? From
Dollar Tree.
Dollar Tree, sorry,
The other
Dollar Tree.
Dollar
I apologize. Strike that from my thing. But tell us a little bit about, your first title and how you progressed.
Yeah, so I actually got the opportunity to join Dollar Tree by going to the career fair here. I had already had something lined up with QVC in Rocky Mount, working as a supervisor there. Saw, I forget her last name, but Lauren, who came through the program with me, they graduated a year earlier. She kind of pulled me to the side. She's like, Tyler, come over here. And she was like, you gotta apply. Like, we're looking for people like you. And I was like, I don't really want to be a store manager, because that's what I thought it was. She was like, no, it's a whole supply chain department. We're based out of Virginia. You should put your name in a hat. And I did, and I was fortunate enough to get an offer. And I took it, and I moved up to Chesapeake, Virginia. I live in Virginia Beach now. As a logistics analyst, so more on I was on the outbound side, so our distribution centers to our stores, fulfilling the stores that distribution center served by routing the trucks and building with the grids or the pick paths that they would use at the distribution center. So not boots on the ground, but more of a support role. Then I fielded any sort of like store delivery issues, worked with the carriers, and kind of got to see from the distribution center to the store how that all worked. Did that for about 2 years, took on whatever I could. I wanted to learn as much as I could. And then a data analyst role opened up on the distribution center side. And I actually at ECU, I got a supply chain degree as well as an MIS concentration. So I leveraged that and saying, hey, I haven't done it in a while, but I think I can do it. So I got that opportunity, and Dollar Tree had just acquired Family Dollar about the year before I joined the company. So there was still a lot of merging going on through that acquisition, and they wanted to see key metrics holistically for the entire enterprise, not just one banner or the other. So I did that for about 2 years. We're still kind of continuing to go through that merger. We're a lot further along now, but they recognized that they needed a bigger op model to support that effort. So a management position opened up. I became the manager over that group. Built the processes that the team follows today. Did that for about 2.5 years. And then through good conversations with my manager and where I wanted to go, there was a finance manager position that was coming available, and they were like, Tyler, you should consider this, because they knew I wanted to be a chief one day. And they were like, you need to have a finance kind of cornerstone in your resume that's going to help you get there when that opportunity comes. And I was like, I'm not a finance manager. I haven't worked for the big companies. I haven't worked for KPMG. I was like, that's not really a path I want to go down. And they were like, just think about it. And through those good conversations, I put my name in the hat, fortunate enough to get the opportunity. I've been doing that for about 1.5 years now, supporting our distribution centers through the OpEx process, budgeting, all capital expenditures for supply chain go through my team now. And that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 18 months or so. So I would tell you, just because of where you're at today, where you think you're going to go, you're probably not going to end up exactly where you think you're going to be at in 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So, I would tell you, keep your eyes open, look for opportunities, and even if it doesn't feel like that's exactly what you want, think about it holistically, because it can lead you down a path that's really going to be fruitful for you down the road.
And Adam, you started with Interroll, and you worked there for a decent amount of time, 7, 8 years?
9.
9, yeah. So tell us a little bit about how that progressed, and what you started out with, and then kind of how you ended. Now you've only been with GE Hitachi for
3 months.
3 months, okay, yeah. So not very long, it was a short period of time. Go ahead.
Any of my stories are mostly going to be from Interroll.
Right.
Or I can tell you the differences between some of it, yeah. But so I started out with Interroll directly out of college. I had the job when I graduated because I applied to it, so I went down and started. I started as a buyer. Interroll is a global company, but still the facility in Wilmington is fairly small. It's about 100 people, including all the employees on the floor and the support staff in the office. So I started out as a buyer, doing indirect and direct purchases, and then it progressed from there, kind of helping continue to work out the kinks in the ERP system. So I started in 2014. In 2012, they had gone to SAP. There's still bitter complaining at some points. My boss slowly over the years stopped complaining about it and understood the system more. With stuff like that, the inputs help you get the outputs out of it, so it's good to do that. So from that, I continued to work with them and progressed. They promoted me to senior buyer. And then from there, I found another job, actually. So I turned in a resignation letter saying, I found a job that's going to pay me more. They came back and counteroffered and said, how about we pay you this and promote you to purchasing manager. A lot of people will say, don't do that, don't stay with that job. If you decided to go, you should go. I decided to stay. That was the best decision I think I could have made, and it worked out well. So I was purchasing manager for about 5 years, I believe, 4 or 5 years. I stayed the purchasing manager at Enroll Corporation. And then I got an offer to go to GE. I had a buddy that had gone to work out there, and he said he saw something that popped up one day. He said, Adam, I don't know if you're looking, but this job sounds like it would be good for you. So, if you want to apply, I'll send you a referral link, and you can apply through that. He said, all full disclosure, he said, I'll get a bonus if you apply and take a job and stay for 3 months. So it worked out in his favor as well. But so now, so left Enroll, and it's actually funny. I was actually traveling for Enroll, so I got an offer for GE when I was in Germany, doing some supplier audits and some vendor visits over there. Accepted the position. Now I've been at GE for 3 months now.
Good. Thank you, Adam. So full disclosure here, as Raj talked earlier about that he thought maybe he was like third in line for being invited as the main speaker. And I'd say that all 4 of these were my first 4 choices. Sorry, you were, right? You actually were, but you replied, and that was good, because I was thinking to myself sometimes I don't even know if students answer emails anymore. I don't know, I'm not on social media, so I was wondering, but you answered my emails, and that was excellent. So, you all answered with different jobs in different areas. I think that's important, and that's also why I invited you, is that I got a little bit of tenure at a company, but switched companies, tenure at a company the whole time, right, being there, moved through different positions. Lily changed companies, right, and then has made a decision really to go back to school, right, just lately. Sydney, you're with the same company. And so the reason why I kind of tried to set this up or engineer it this way is that they have different stories to tell. So one of the things that was interesting that Adam brought up, and you probably had to do this also, Lily, is I remember I had to do this at one point in time, my career is, actually twice, right, is write that letter of resignation, and say I'm giving my 2 weeks. Never had done that before in my life, right? And I know you're not trained to do that. I guess you could seek out help, right, and ask an HR person, but you don't want to ask the HR people that are at your company to do that, because what I'm getting at is that I wanted to ask you is some of the skill sets that you acquired here at ECU. It doesn't have to be necessarily just in the supply chain area. That would be helpful if you did say that. But also that just overall in your college experience and your grad degree or grad degrees for you ladies, what has helped you, or what could you kind of say, just sum it up in a couple of nuggets? What were the things that really you still use today and that still help you?
So one thing that comes to my mind is we were talking about Dr. Rowe, and I remember he said something in one of his classes that's kind of stuck with me. And when you talk about making a change, it's not easy to make that decision, right? Because you go, I don't hate my job. I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. People come to me and they know I know what I'm doing here. So do I want to go into the unknown? An opportunity that may pay more money, or maybe a better situation closer to whatever it is. Do I want to step into that unknown, and what if I hate it if I do? It's a tough decision to make, tough to sit down and write that resignation letter and say, because once you've lit that fuse, then you could be considered a liability or something. They go, okay, here's your resignation, here's the door, we don't need you to 2 weeks, walk right on out. It's a possibility, it could happen. But one thing Dr. Rowe says, when you're making decisions about business like that, he said, there's no right or wrong decision. There's only a decision. If you don't like the decision you make another one. And that's kind of stuck with me. I've thought about that, and I said, that's right. If I go into it and I hate it, supply chain. Fortunately, there's plenty of jobs out there. You can look on LinkedIn, on Indeed. There's tons of jobs out there, all different facets of different places in supply chain, and it all kind of works together. If you're in one role, you don't have the experience in another, but you kind of have an idea of what they're doing, and so you could probably slide into it and learn it. You have the capability to learn, and a lot of your job knowledge is going to come from on the job, right? They're going to train you how to use their system. They're going to train you how to be at that company. So if you have the ability to learn and kind of There was another book that was in one of the classes, I think it was called Lead Your Boss, or Lead Your Own Boss, or something like that. And that plays into it as well, right? Because sometimes, they're doing other things, but you have an idea of, this is a problem, and I have an idea that we can make it better. And, just keep pushing. If you treat any position like it's your own business, then you'll do well. If you treat the job like it's your business, and what would I do in this situation if I owned the company, you treat something like that, and then I think you'll go far.
Yeah, I really don't have much to add because you hit the nail on the head with that one. Continue to be a lifelong learner. Learning doesn't stop when you graduate from here. When you get in the job, like, you're going to have these core principles that you've learned along the way, and they're going to be very helpful to get you a lead pad in front of your peers when you get where you're going. But don't stop being a lifetime learner. And I will tell you, talking to some of my peers that didn't go to ECU and hearing the stories the war stories they have from their professors, a lot of their professors grew up on books, like they didn't go into the workforce. I will tell you that I still pull on the old Kirchhoff and Cross stories from when they were actually in the field, when they were working before they came back and were teaching. So leverage those guys and all your professors as best you can to kind of pull some of that experience out of them. Because, I have, through the conversations and relationships I was able to build with them while I was here, and I've applied them, and they weren't things that were just in the course curriculum either. They were just through good conversations. But as you leave here, don't stop learning, because if you do that, you will stagnate and you will not advance. But if you do, you're going to put yourself in a position to seize opportunities when they come available.
Awesome. So I agree with everything you guys said, and piggybacking off of making a decision, I actually got that too. So I got the same piece of advice, and that came in handy so much. There wasn't always somebody over me, and there's not always somebody right beside me, that I could go to. And for example, I was on second shift, and I was the only manager in the building. Everybody else on first shift was asleep, not answering my phone calls. I had an irate truck driver that was at my door, and I didn't know what to do. I'd never experienced it before. And I just thought back, whatever the decision is, I need to make it. I just have to make the call. Nobody's answering me. It's just me. So I made the call, and then the next day, I get called into the office. I had to come in early. Lily, why'd you make that call? You should have come to us first. And I said, I tried to call. I didn't get an answer, and I stuck by what I decided, and I told them why I made the decision I made. And they said, I probably wouldn't have made that decision, so maybe do this for next time. But they were glad that I did make the call. So mainly the call that I had to make was the product that I had on the truck, all of it was damaged. And it was batteries, car batteries. So I had battery acid running down the side of the truck, and when you open it, it wasn't safe to unload the truck. So I made the decision to turn the truck away. So when I made that decision, it's a very costly decision because we're not taking in any of the product. But I learned from my decision, and I was just happy that I made one, and you just learn from your mistakes. So that was definitely a real life, something that I took from that. And then I would say another example from ECU that I've taken just from the classes is Miss Justice's class. I don't know if any of you guys have had the chance to take her, but she actually went through a lot of different things, just dressing business casual a few times a week for her class. And then also she helps a lot with your resumes, with just building your LinkedIn, and all those things just seem like, little milestones. Oh, I know how to do that. I know how to write a resume. I know how to build my LinkedIn. But she has so many words of wisdom and pieces of advice where I thought my resume was good until she read it over. And I had so many red marks, and that's what really helps me. So I still use those techniques, just updating my resume today. And also, of course, Dr. Cross and Kirchhoff, they're definitely great resources as well. So I still use all those things today.
Well, I don't want to go last because I feel like I'm just going to be a parent over here. But one thing that I did is I saved all of my lecture notes, all of the PowerPoints, and I still often will go back and look through them. I would tell you guys, one, you're showing some dedication because you're here. No one's forcing you to be here, I don't think. No extra credit is being offered from what I'm hearing. So, but that shows your drive, and take that and run with it, because once you get in the workplace, you're going to see folks who it's 8 to 5 and that's it. They're going to go 8 to 12, they're going to take their lunch, they're going to come back at 1 and just sit at their desk, and they're going to do their job and they're going to go home. Don't do that. Be a team player. I know while I was in school, group projects were not always the most fun thing to do. Once you get in the real working world, everything's a group project, because you're going to be working with your team. Sometimes it can be people who report to you. Sometimes it can be to your manager, to other managers in your department. But everything is a group project. So the sooner you kind of lean into that and say, okay, how can we get through all the stages of storming, forming, norming, all of that we all have seen on so many slides that we might think, okay, really again? But honestly, it's an everyday thing. The one other thing I would tell you would be, if you ever have questions, ask them. Don't ever think because you're the new kid on the block, or maybe you've been in your role for a year and it's something that you think, I should know how to do this. Your manager will appreciate you going to them, and you don't have to, say, I don't know what I'm doing, please help. You can word it as, hey, this is the path that I'm thinking of taking on this. Am I going in the right direction? I have 7 direct reports, and I love it when they come into my office and say, okay, here's the problem, here's how I'm thinking of solving it, instead of, Sydney, here's the problem, what do I do? Because when they do that, I look at them and kind of wait for them to come to and say, oh, let me try it this way. And if they're on the wrong path, I'll, gently get them back on the right path. But you're here for a reason, you're learning stuff, and you're going to take that with you. But just remember what you learned.
Very good. No, thank you for all of that, folks. Let me ask you another question. Is that throughout years, I know, back to you, Sydney, is that you worked for a company called Crown, I think, up in, again, about the same area, right? I mean, right there, Rocky Mount, it's like right off of 64, isn't it there? But that was an internship. And then, again, Lily, same thing. You had some experience. So, and Adam, let me ask you, so I know many of the students, in the audience today, and some are in my class now, but tell us a little bit about how important getting that internship or getting that experience was for you.
For me, it taught me 2 things. 2 summers I did internships at Crown LSP Group in Rocky Mount. The first one I was in the accounting office, and after that summer, accounting was off. I did not want to do that, it was terrible. But if you're into accounting, that's great. Then the second summer I went back and I was in logistics. I spent every day calling truckers, trying to get them to haul tires from point A to point B. And I was like, that's not it either. So for me, the internships, one, they got me comfortable in the workplace, in asking questions to managers and learning how to do things. But 2, it taught me, okay, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. And it guided me in a better direction to be where I'm at now. So.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, so I interned with Advanced Auto Parts, and so I only had 1 internship, and that was my senior year, summer of my senior year. And I was supposed to actually go up to Columbus, Ohio, but it was during COVID, so that didn't happen. Everything ended up being switched to online. So it was a blessing and a curse with the online modules that we went through and all of the different people I got to connect with and things like that. I realized that I could never work remote. I realized that very quickly. I knew that if it was temporary, that's fine, but I cannot sit in front of a computer for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I did learn that from my internship, but I really did enjoy what I was doing. I was a supply chain leadership intern with Advance, and it was really kind of cool how I got into the internship. I went to the job fair here at ECU, and Advanced Auto Parts struck my interest because my dad is a mechanic and he's had his own garage for 30 years. So I've worked with him growing up, and his main supplier is Advanced Auto Parts. So I knew a lot about parts, I knew all the names and how the commercial side works. So it was really cool, it sparked my interest. I went to the job fair, saw them at the booth, and I stopped in, and that ended up being my first, stepping stone into my career. So, yeah.
Good. Tyler, if I remember correctly, did your parents or your mom work at Revlon?
Yeah, my mom worked.
I'm not saying that's how you got a job. That's not what I'm saying.
Nepotism. No.
Tell us a little bit. I mean,
Yeah,
I just
so,
remembered that. I was thinking to myself, I think his mom had.
Yeah, so I did a co-op in my high school. It's in rural North Carolina, and they had a co-op opportunity for seniors that if you placed, you had to be placed well in your class, where essentially your fourth period was off, and then they would place you into companies within the community to work. They were at the library, they were at doctor's offices. Revlon was one of them because they're a big employer in my hometown. So I did know the director of HR there because you grow up in a town with basketball, you know everybody after that many years. But placed into that, got that role, worked on the production line, like I said, for 9 months. I had to go to school, go to Revlon from 3 to 8:30, Monday through Friday, so 12-hour days, senior year of high school. To your point, you put yourself in 8 to 5, you're gonna lock yourself in there, but if you're willing to work a little bit more, you'll get to where you want to be faster. I found that for myself, might not work for everybody. But I recognized I did not want to work in my hometown on a production floor for 40 years. That was a good lesson learned when I was real young. I came to ECU, I did do an internship at a poultry processing facility up in Harrisonburg, Virginia. I don't know if you've gone past a poultry processing facility, but doing that in the middle of summer for 3 months straight, kind of tell you, do I really want to do this for 40 years or not? So I weighed that myself, but I was able to go through the whole operation, which I loved. I got to do a little bit on the corporate side too, build some production models for the sales guys to use to understand how much they're going to be yielding based on the production flow they had coming in. That was a wealth of experience for me to understand what I didn't want to do, was be in poultry for the next 40, 50 years. But also allowed me to gain a lot of soft skills, how to communicate effectively. One of the best courses I took here that I didn't know at the time, outside of supply chain, was just the business writing English course they make you take. How to write an effective memo, how do you communicate a whole wealth of information to someone that knows nothing about it in like a paragraph. That is a great skill set to have. But then, those experiences allowed me to build a resume that when the time came when I was coming out of college, it was this person has worked 2 or 3 roles, they leveraged their summers to gain that experience of what you like, what you don't like, building the soft skills. So when it's your resume versus someone else's, you might have a little bit of a leg up. So if you haven't done internships, I would implore you to do it regardless of where it's from, because you're going to get something out of it, whether it means a job with them that you're going to stay with forever, or just an experience that you can kind of lean into as you go through your career.
And I think,
Add to that a little bit for the
one of our conversations, you had some experience with chickens too, right?
I don't know that I have experience with chickens. I live in Rose Hill, which is where House of Rayford is.
Yeah, I would say, we had a conversation about this.
Culture Jubilee.
Yeah, and some smells, but anyway, about chicken,
To add to what Tyler said a little bit, it wasn't nepotism, I'm sure, but at the same time, it doesn't hurt. The saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know, definitely reigns true. I mean, if you're going to job fairs, you guys are in here, if there's one of these companies you're interested in, come and talk to somebody after, shoot them a message on LinkedIn. That type of stuff definitely helps. I mean, I've had people, reach out to me and maybe I didn't remember them, but they said, hey, I saw you, or I have a common connection, I'm interested in a position you have posted. That just, to see their face and you go, okay, and you're making another connection, it just kind of builds something in your mind. But to your question, Dr. Carl, so I had a couple internships while I was here at ECU as well. If you haven't got an internship, you should definitely go to the Career Center and look for them. It does just give you exposure to see kind of different aspects of different things. So I worked at Carver Machine Works, which is up in Little Washington. So it's a very small machine shop. They did a lot of stuff for pulp and paper mills. So they were doing machine stuff. They did other stuff as well, but they did a lot for pulp and paper mills. And then I also worked at NACCO Material Handling Group here in Greenville. In their supply chain department, and the exposure for that was great because I got to see 2 different things, right? I got to see a company that had less than 100 people, and I got to see a giant company that had, 1,000 people probably. It was kind of helped me decide kind of where I wanted to be. And Interroll was that good to start off with in my career. Interroll was that good balance for me, where it was, it's not a tiny company where I have to go, do I have to check with finance before I submit this PO because I want to make sure there's enough money in the bank to cover this order, but it's also not, I'm more than just a number in a sea of cubicles, right? And it depends what you want. There's some of it, there's advantages to both sides of it. Clearly I'm at GE now, which is a much larger company, but it's good to see that, And one thing that my boss at Carver Machine Works said, and I don't know if Sydney will relate to it or not, because he used to be like a purchasing manager for Cheesecake Factory, and he said, Adam, don't work in the food industry. He said, this stuff expires. He said, there'll be stuff you order and it goes bad before it moves. He said, steel doesn't do that. It can sit on the shelf for years, and then when you need it, you can pull it down and use it.
That's fair.
And for those of you who do know, Heister Yale used to be called NACO. So for those of you who didn't know that, they have changed their name. But I know we're getting kind of close to time. I think we got about 20, maybe 15, 20 minutes left. I guess I'd like to maybe open it up to the floor to see if anybody has any questions to ask. Rodney, go ahead.
I know you guys have been out of school for a while, but, except for, yeah. So how does the integration of AI kind of like excite you guys or make your job easier / difficult to the supply chain sector?
I gotta say, for me, I think the wheels of industry turn slow sometimes, especially on stuff that's very new like that. So there's a lot of stuff that you see it and you go, that's a long ways out. What does excite me is self-driving vehicles, which also still, I guess, more than a decade or more before they actually integrate something. But the idea that I could hire a truck and there's not truck drivers involved where it's going to drive directly to me, that'll cut down lead times for me, where I can say, okay, something's going to move from Chicago to Wilmington. It's usually a 2-day trip because that trucker has to stop due to the hours they have to log, where it could then just drive directly to my door and be there in more like a day instead of 2.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's probably a couple of years away from being concerned. I don't know if y'all have seen those AI pictures where they're like, you look at it and you're like, oh, those are cool, but then you look into the details, you're like, that doesn't all, kind of jive, right? I think that human components, there'll be a point when AI is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but there's always going to be that human component that you're validating. Job titles will likely change around it, but I think that it is very well likely to happen in our lifetime, but it's not an overt concern of mine at this point.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It is exciting to think about, but in the distribution centers, at least that I've been in, they are so far away from that. For example, with just the systems, I was working with a system probably from maybe the 80s, and that was their updated system, and that's for advanced auto parts, like a big Fortune 500 company. I was still filing. We had a file room that I had to file papers. So this is, we're talking, this is last year, so going from, that file room in my head, I just can't even imagine, some companies investing that much in something so new when there's just so many other things that we kind of have to put in place first to be up to par.
Saying 100. Yeah, working on systems that were around long before you were born is something unique that I'm sure you guys will experience one day. But I hope to be retired and maybe long gone by the time AI takes over supply chain. But there's just certain things, like y'all were saying, there's always going to be a human component for us. Like calling a buyer at Cisco to say, hey, when do you need this product? We're getting word from the concept saying they're out. When do you need it? Can we FedEx some? Do we need to send a whole truck? Things like that I just don't see AI taking over just yet, which is good. A little bit of job security.
Claire, go ahead.
I think it was Colleen.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there.
Hi, I'm Colleen. So for me, I started out not in the College of Business, but in allied health, nutrition, dietetics, and I've always wanted to work with athletes. And I know you guys, like you said, Tyler, chemistry, we didn't sing the same song, so that's why I'm here. And like you guys mentioned at career fairs, getting internships and things like that. But for me, I don't, and this is not offensive to y'all, but I don't want to just work with selling parts or procurement, stuff like that. I still want to work with athletes. So for you, Sydney, how did you find a route into the food industry and outside like your regular careers that they mentioned?
So, like y'all said earlier, it's about who you know. The way I got my job is it was a mutual friend. They had an opening and called and set up an interview. I had never heard of this company, even though it was 20 minutes down the road from my house. So I would go on LinkedIn, find people in either companies or who have a background in the area that you want to focus in. Shoot them a message. I get LinkedIn messages all the time, and sometimes they're spam, but sometimes it's someone genuinely wanting to know more. So to find someone like that, I would suggest doing maybe like a mentorship sort of thing. Just getting your name out there, that's what I would suggest.
To add, I would say there's not a time where somebody, like a student, has reached out to me that seemed genuinely interested that I haven't responded, that I've just blown them off or anything. And I think if anybody, you guys would probably agree that if anybody reached out to me and was like, hey, would you be willing to meet for lunch or something like that? I mean, I would, and they were a student, I would absolutely go and meet them for lunch and probably pay for it. But there's tons of stuff you can do. So if there's something that you're interested in, specifically with athletes, and you know there's a company that you're interested in, you know, you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on their webpage and find out who those people are that are working at that company that's the procurement manager a lot of times, and you can reach out to them on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Sure.
Cameron.
Cameron, go ahead, Cameron.
Yeah, my name is Cameron. I'm a marketing major with data analytics certificate. I know you mentioned Tyler that a data analytics job or took MIS classes or something like that. What kind of opportunities does having a data analytics certificate open up in the field of supply chain?
It kind of catapulted me to where I'm at now. So I would say the wheels move slow, as we talked about, right? So there's opportunity of new tools. So I actually worked to get a tool called Alteryx, which I don't know if we're teaching that here or not, but it's a data aggregation tool where you're able to tap into a lot of different data sources and combine data, harmonize it, and build good insights on the outside of it. And I can tell you that every single executive that I worked with, they want data. They want to see it. You can shoot from the hip all you want, but at the end of the day, if you shoot from the hip and you have the data to back it up, you're going to get where you want to go. And so that because of that, it's a necessity, and a lot of companies don't have a good infrastructure for it yet, from my experience. But it's going to be a continuing one, and I always had the opportunity to work in IT. I didn't want to work in IT. I want to be in supply chain. I want to be in a business-facing type of role. So there are opportunities that if you want to be more in IT, where you're just coding for the systems that are in place, or being on the project teams that are implementing new systems, that's always there. Most IT teams now are structured by function. So you'll have like a marketing IT support group or a supply chain support group. So there's going to be opportunity in that. But there are also opportunities where you're embedded in the business and you're working with key source systems. You're the one that they tap on your shoulder when they're like, hey, we need to understand all these questions that we have. Can you go find the answer in the data and answer it for us? And that exists.
Sure.
I'm Precious Isam from Cameroon. So I got a question. I just wanted to ask, for someone who is not from a supply chain background, let's say for example you come from a healthcare background, are there some specific skills that are crucial in order for you to excel in the supply chain or logistic field?
I would say be curious. If you're naturally curious and you are willing to ask the questions, ask why, seek to understand, you'll be successful. There's a lot of people that, from my organization, that work in supply chain that do not have supply chain backgrounds. There's former math teachers, English teachers, philosophy people. There's not a requirement to work in supply chain. If it's something that entices you about it, and you're an avid learner, you can learn it. And that's really what I would say as a hiring manager, what I look for when I look at someone.
The two predecessors to me at Interroll, they were the purchasing manager. One of them had been in accounting previously, and the other one was in like collections initially, and then he was in sales for a little bit, and then he moved into procurement. So neither of them were supply chain majors, and neither of them were doing that in business previously. They got kind of pulled into that role just given their knowledge of the business, and they progressed from there.
I'm sorry, I just got buzzed in the air that we're supposedly out of time, because I think there's some folks queuing up out here. So please, you will maybe have to move out of here, but we can stand outside if people want to have more conversation with our folks. I think we're staying for a little bit longer. Okay. Thank you so much for coming.